It was supposed to be a quiet visit, just a quick tour of his old elementary school in the sleepy town of Larchmont, where Andrew Garfield had spent the early chapters of his youth. The corridors, now a little more faded and echoing than he remembered, still carried the warmth of laughter and the faint scent of crayons and pencil shavings. Staff greeted him kindly, a few snapping polite photos, while the principal led him down the main hallway lined with framed class portraits from decades gone by. Andrew smiled as he passed the glossy photos, rows of gap-toothed kids, stiff with their forced smiles, lined up beside wide-eyed teachers. But as he reached the section where his class photo should have hung, 1996, Miss Delaney's fourth grade, he paused. The frame was there, but it was empty. No photo, just a yellowed card beneath the glass that read in the simple typewriter print, temporarily removed. But even that card was curling at the edges, like it had been there for years. Andrew blinked. "Hey, sorry, what happened to this one?" he asked the principal, who glanced over and shrugged. "That one's been missing a while," she said. "Strangest thing. We've looked everywhere, even had parents asking about it at one point, but no one ever found the original photo or a copy." Andrew frowned. "I was in that class." The principal tilted her head, curious. "Really? Maybe you can help us solve the mystery." He laughed lightly, but his curiosity was already tightening into something more focused. It wasn't just the missing photo, it was the odd stillness in the space where it should have been, like something had been quietly erased. After the tour, Andrew wandered back to that same spot alone. He stood there for several minutes, staring at the vacant frame. Memories began to surface. Names, voices, a chalkboard smeared with math problems, a boy who always sat by the window. That boy. Andrew tried to recall his name. Quiet, shy, always drawing in the margins of his notebook. He could see the boy's face in his mind, but the name wouldn't come. Later that evening in his hotel room, Andrew pulled out his phone and began searching for any class lists, newsletters, even archived yearbooks from 1996. But something strange happened. There was no mention of that specific class anywhere. It was like it had been scrubbed. Andrew leaned back in his chair, unsettled. What began as a nostalgic visit had now become something else entirely, an itch he couldn't ignore. Someone, or something, had made an entire class photo disappear, and he was going to find out why. The next morning, Andrew sat in the school library, its shelves now updated but still holding that faint, paper-sweet scent of memory. He had convinced the staff to let him look through the archive materials himself, and the librarian, an elderly woman named Mrs. Kessler, brought out a few dusty boxes marked 1990s, yearbooks, class records. He combed through them one by one. There was 1990, then 1990, and when he reached the binder for 1996, his year, it was incomplete. The fourth grade class list was missing entirely. Pages had been carefully removed, not torn or damaged, just gone. That same odd emptiness returned, like a blank frame in the middle of a painting. He sat back, rubbing his temple. A thought occurred to him. Maybe not everyone had forgotten. Maybe someone who was there, someone who'd taught that year, still remembered. And that's when he remembered Miss Delaney. Kind, quiet Miss Delaney. She used to hum softly when she wrote on the chalkboard. Rumor had it she lived in a nearby coastal town after retiring, and after a quick search, he found a lead, a phone listing and a small address by the sea. Later that afternoon, Andrew drove through winding roads until he reached a cozy cottage surrounded by wildflowers. He knocked on the door, and after a moment, it creaked open. There she was, older now, with silver hair and soft, wise eyes, but unmistakably Miss Delaney. "Andrew Garfield," she said with gentle surprise. "From room 12. He smiled, touched that she remembered. "I was hoping to ask you something, about our fourth grade class." Her smile faded slightly. "I knew someone would come eventually," she whispered. She invited him in, and soon they sat by the fireplace, his tea steeped in the kitchen. On her lap, she held a photo album, but when she opened it, the page for 96 was blank. "It's not that I don't remember," she said. "It's that I was asked not to talk about it. After it happened." Andrew leaned forward. "After what happened?" Her voice shook. "Do you remember Eli Franklin, the boy who always sat by the window?" Andrew nodded slowly. That was the name he couldn't recall, the one that had hovered just out of reach. "He disappeared," she said, "right before picture day. One day he just didn't come back to school. No one knew why. His parents were troubled. And when he went missing, there was barely a police report. It was like the town chose to forget, and the school followed suit. The class photo was never printed, no record, just silence." Andrew's chest tightened. "They told me not to stir it up, said it would bring unnecessary pain." She looked at him with heavy eyes. "But I never forgot him. And neither did the rest of the class. They just got scared." Andrew took her hand gently. I want to find out what happened to him. He deserves that. Miss Delaney hesitated, then stood and walked to a drawer. She returned with a small, worn notebook. This was his. I kept it all these years. His drawings, his words. Andrew flipped on through the pages, heart pounding. The sketches were raw and expressive. Moody skies, a lonely figure by a window, birds flying away from rooftops. The final page was different. It was a map of the school grounds with a small X drawn behind the old music building. I never understood what he meant by it, she said, but maybe you will. Andrew stared at the X, a chill running down his spine. This wasn't just a forgotten child. This was a message left behind for someone who would finally come looking. And he had. It was just after sunrise when Andrew returned to the school, gripping Eli Franklin's notebook in one hand. The air was crisp, laced with the scent of wet earth and morning dew. Few were around, just the janitor pushing a squeaky cart and a group of early risers setting up for the day's events. He nodded politely, his pace steady and purposeful as he made his way toward the old music building, a structure no longer in use but still standing like a forgotten relic from another era. He followed the map Eli had drawn, which led him past the ivy-covered side entrance, then around back to a rusting service door. To his surprise, the door wasn't locked. It creaked open slowly, revealing darkness layered with cobwebs and dust that floated in the beams of morning light filtering through broken windows. The floorboards groaned beneath his feet as he stepped inside. Eli, he whispered instinctively, the name echoing off the walls like a prayer. The music room was frozen in time, shelves of warped sheet music, a collapsed xylophone, and an upright piano with its lid ajar. But Andrew wasn't here for nostalgia. He moved to the far wall, referencing the sketch in the notebook. The X was marked just left of a stack of chairs. He cleared the clutter away until he saw it, a small wooden panel barely visible beneath layers of old paint. With cautious determination, he pried the panel loose. Behind it was a hollow space, and within it, wrapped in a plastic sleeve, was a faded photograph. His breath caught. It was the missing class portrait. Eli was there, sitting quietly in the back row, staring directly at the camera. But more importantly, there was a folded note taped to the back. Andrew unfolded it. If someone finds this, please tell them I didn't run away. I wanted to stay, but I couldn't anymore. I'm sorry I made her cry. It was signed simply Eli F. A wave of emotion struck Andrew like a crashing tide. This wasn't just a boy who vanished. Eli had tried to be heard, and no one had listened. Back in the main building, Andrew met with the current principal, an empathetic woman named Miss Rivera. He showed her the photo, the note, the notebook, everything. She listened in silence, her eyes growing glassy. She promised she'd take this to the school board, that they'd restore the photo, contact Eli's relatives if possible, and honor his place in the school's history. But Andrew wasn't done yet. Later that week, a small assembly was held, just a few teachers, current students, and former classmates who could be reached. Miss Delaney came too, walking with a cane, but still radiating the same warmth Andrew remembered. They unveiled the restored class photo in the hallway, this time with a small plaque beneath it. In memory of Eli Franklin, a classmate, a friend, never forgotten. There was a moment of silence, and then a soft voice, Miss Delaney, began humming the same tune she used to hum in class. One by one, others joined in. A bittersweet harmony filled the hallway, like a lullaby for a memory finally laid to rest. After the assembly, a man approached Andrew quietly. He was in his early 40s, with familiar eyes and a nervous posture. I'm Eli's brother, he said. I heard what you did. Andrew was stunned. The man continued, his voice thick. We were both taken out of school by our father. It was a bad situation. Eli was delicate. He left things behind hoping someone might care enough to find them. Andrew nodded, overwhelmed. He mattered. He still does. The two stood in silence for a moment, then embraced. That night, Andrew sat by the schoolyard bench where he and Eli once shared peanut butter sandwiches, staring up at the stars. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out Eli's notebook. On the inside cover, in tiny handwriting, were the words, I hope someone remembers me when I'm not around anymore. A tear slid down Andrew's cheek. You were never really gone, he whispered. As the wind rustled the trees above, Andrew closed the notebook and smiled, not with sadness, but with gratitude. For once, the forgotten had been remembered, and silence had finally found its voice. Some stories don't make headlines, but they still deserve to be heard. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another hidden truth brought to light. Comment below, what would you do if you discovered a classmate had been forgotten by history? And remember, sometimes the quietest voices leave the loudest echoes.